They were immigrants who found love in America.
When they saw each other, they each saw home.
They were really in it together, like they love each other.
This was the family unit that they craved.
But there are some things no family should have to go through.
The children had not been picked up.
They went to the apartment, but no one answered.
That's when they called 911.
One down, kitchen.
She was laying in pools of blood.
There was some obvious evidence of struggle in the residence.
Who would have wanted her dead?
She really didn't have any enemies.
But she did have secrets.
You guys are sleeping together.
He was very jealous and controlling.
Then she asked him to leave.
She feared that he would retaliate.
Asked whether he had killed her. He never denied it.
But he didn't admit it either.
The demon, they just took over. I blacked out.
April 17th, 2018. It's Tuesday evening in Silver Spring, Maryland, a DC suburb that sometimes feels like a city in its own right.
It's a bustling, like, metropolitan feel. They're the main strip along Georgia Avenue with a lot of shops and places to eat. It's a very fun environment.
You have the city, and then you have the suburbs right next door. So you have the best of both worlds.
It's also culturally diverse.
You have individuals from all over the world, different cultures, different languages, and all in this very small area.
Ethiopian families, Haitian families, and a lot of Asian families as well. Very multicultural.
And 34-year-old Alice Dennis and her husband, Ruel Dempster, fit right in.
The family had migrated from Liberia. They had 2 children that are like tweens, getting ready to embark on becoming teenagers here.
Even Ruel's parents came over from Liberia.
And at around 6 that evening, they go pick up their grandchildren from an after-school program.
You haven't heard from them?
They received a phone call that the children had not been picked up. So the grandparents picked them up.
Ruel's parents hoped that it was just some sort of mix-up.
Possibly Ruel and Alice just simply forgot or lost track of time.
Unable to reach their son and daughter-in-law, Ruel's parents drive over to the couple's apartment.
Ruel's parents lived just blocks from he and Alice.
They knocked on the door and no one answered.
Ruel? Alice? Are you in there?
No one's answering, but there's music inside the residence. Loud music.
Ruel, Alice!
They knew that something was off.
Although they were both Liberian immigrants, Alice Dennis and Ruel Dempster met in the United States.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
When Alice and Ruel first met, it was almost love at first sight. They were able to spend time together at work every day. And doing something mundane turned into something really fun.
Ruel was immediately captivated by Alice.
She was a very vibrant, happy-go-lucky, life of the party type of personality.
To know Alice was to love Alice. You couldn't help yourself. Her smile was infectious.
And Alice felt the same way about Ruel.
He was charming. And when they saw each other, they each saw home. They understood the culture. This was a man that she could foresee being her husband.
You're vibing, it feels good. It feels like, you know, a stronger connection.
After a few years of dating, Alice and Ruel married.
When they thought they were ready for children, that's exactly what they did. They had their first child, a son, and the world changed for both of them.
The growing family settled into an apartment building across from where Ruel's parents lived.
I think that it is helpful to have that community, to have that support system, especially when you have children.
Then, 2 years after their son was born, the couple had another child, this time a daughter.
This was the family they craved, that they both desired.
They were living the American dream.
But as much as she loved her family, Alice had a dream of her own.
She had certain aspirations, and one of those was becoming a certified nurse assistant.
So Alice enrolled in a nursing assistant program.
And after graduation, Alice found work as a home health aide.
She took care of people and was very hardworking.
Soon, her hard work paid off.
Alice became the breadwinner of the family, and Ruel was there to support her.
Don't forget, set the oven to 350.
Don't worry, I got it.
All right.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you.
He wanted his wife to succeed. He would stay home and take care of the children. It was what worked for them.
She had children and a career that was thriving, and a man that she loved and supported her dreams.
This was a good situation. What more could she ask for?
But now, after failing to pick up their kids from school, Alice and Ruel aren't answering their door.
Call her.
Or their phones.
No one's answering, but there's music inside the residence. And Alice's car was parked there. So that was bizarre.
The next morning, still, no one had been able to contact Alice or Ruel. So when the grandparents got the kids to school, they asked the school to contact police.
I have a student here whose grandfather brought her in this morning. The parents weren't home and they can't get access to the apartment and they don't know where the parents are.
Okay, she'll be dispatched as soon as possible.
When officers arrive at the apartment for a welfare check, they find the same thing Ruel's parents did.
The doors were locked, the windows were secure, and of course, they noticed that Alice's vehicle was still parked there. So that raised a level of concern.
The same loud music is still coming from inside, too.
Patrol ultimately made entry into the apartment with the assistance of property management.
When they entered, they got their first clue as to what had happened.
One down, one down, one down. Kitchen.
Liberian immigrants Alice Dennis and her husband Ruel Dempster had built a great life for themselves and their 2 children.
Alice was working as a certified nursing assistant while Ruel stayed home with the kids.
He was supporting her in her dreams, and the children were healthy, they were thriving.
But now police conducting a welfare check at the couple's apartment have just made a horrific discovery.
One down, one down, one down. Kitchen.
They immediately saw a female on the floor suffering from what appeared to be traumatic injuries.
She was laying in pools of blood.
It was clear that she was beyond help.
I mean, I don't know that we need fire rescue. No.
It was clear that she had obvious trauma to her upper torso.
This woman was stabbed multiple times.
So officers secured the residence and notified homicide.
They're trying to get tape and just tape everything off.
When detectives arrive on the scene, they start out by examining the body.
She had one particularly large stab injury to her neck that was clean through to the bone, and frankly, an injury that nearly decapitated her.
When you see the severity of the injuries, it just shows that perhaps the attacker had some personal connection to the victim.
And it's clear from the scene that she didn't go down without a fight.
The house was turned upside down.
There was a lot of evidence of there being a fight or a struggle in the residence.
Detectives are also able to determine that the woman is Alice.
She was wearing scrubs and a lanyard with her ID badge.
She clearly had either been going to work or coming home from work.
But who would want to hurt her? Hoping for answers, the detectives turn to Alice and Ruel's neighbors.
We don't know anything about Alice when we get there. So we have to talk to neighbors, talk to family, talk to friends, and try to understand who she was.
Unfortunately, they learned that Alice and her husband mostly kept to themselves.
Do you know them next door?
We don't really know them, but I know their children.
Talking to people in and about the area is really important. Sometimes they don't have any information, but you don't know until you talk to them. Monday night, did you ever hear anything unusual or?
No.
Didn't hear anything?
No.
However, one neighbor had seen Alice outside her apartment late Saturday night.
I was coming from the club with my husband, and she was outside sitting in the stairs.
She was obviously upset.
Could this incident have something to do with her death?
Unfortunately, when the detectives ask why Alice was upset, her neighbor has no idea.
I don't know anything else.
Okay, and?
I mean, we just see each other. I don't even know her name. She just goes, oh, hi, how are you? You know, your daughter's getting big, stuff like that, but that's it.
Still, the canvas does reveal something useful.
We identified some security cameras that we knew we were going to want to get footage from.
So, before leaving the complex, detectives stop by the management office, and they agree to send the footage over.
It could narrow down that timeline, that window of what happened and when it happened.
It could even include footage of the killer coming or going from the apartment.
After arranging for the apartment management to send them the footage, the detectives sit down with Ruel's mother, who has arrived outside the apartment.
Why don't you have a seat in my car? Figure out what's going on.
She was devastated to learn that her daughter-in-law was dead.
These two families were interconnected. Alice and Ruel were special to each side of the family, and Ruel's family was just as devastated learning something like this could happen to Alice.
But Alice's mother-in-law also has an urgent question.
Where is that, Ruel?
They hadn't heard from him. His phone was going straight to voicemail.
Hoping for clues, the detectives have Ruel's mom go back to the beginning.
She said she didn't have any idea anything was wrong until the school called her. The school said they needed to come get the children.
It's not like them not to call.
Right.
They picked up the kids, figured they'd drop them off later, and everything would be fine.
But they never heard anything from Ruel or Alice.
I told him, I said, look, this is getting serious.
This wasn't like anything that Alice or Ruel had ever done before.
And the next morning, still unable to get a hold of Ruel or Alice, they'd ask the school to call the police.
Because according to Ruel's mother, they were afraid something had happened.
They argue a lot.
In fact, Ruel's mother said recently she had to break up a fight between them.
Oh, you're sick and tired? You tired? You going to the bathroom?
Ruel Dempster's mother has just told detectives investigating the murder of his wife, Alice Dennis, that the couple had been having arguments.
She admitted that Ruel and Alice were having some marital issues.
Apparently, Ruel had even gotten into some legal trouble, too.
He had a weapons charge that was a federal charge.
He had been imprisoned for 3 years.
And he was still on federal parole for that crime.
But she says it was nothing that they couldn't work out, nothing to lead to Alice winding up dead in their home.
Has it ever been physical? that you know of, or that Alice has told you, or Rules told you?
No.
However, Ruel's mother admits that she has had to step in at times,
including a few days prior, early on Saturday morning.
Hey, who was that, huh? No! Where you trying to go? Huh?
I just don't want this no more.
No!
Leave me alone.
No, you can't go in there.
I'm so sick of it.
I don't care.
She called me, we talked, I would say around 1-something, 2 in the morning.
Alice had to call her in-laws just so she could put some separation between herself and Ruel. And his parents immediately, because they lived just a few blocks away, came right to the apartment.
Yeah, no, man, this is so...
Oh, you're sick and tired? You don't want to pay. You tell you don't want to pay.
Come on, Ruel. No, calm down.
You come up here.
Let go.
They came in, they talked with their son, and calmed things down.
I made a statement that they need, counseling.
Still, Ruel's mother couldn't imagine that any of these issues would have led to Alice's death.
Okay. Well, where do you think Raul would be?
I don't know. I really have no idea.
To get a possible lead on Ruel, the detectives subpoena his cell phone records once they get back to the station.
They also subpoenaed Alice's records, hoping to get a more complete picture of the couple's relationship.
Cell phones play a huge part of just about every investigation. We always have to get a search warrant, and that takes time.
Then, while waiting to hear back from the couple's cell phone provider, the detectives reach out to Alice and Ruel's friends and coworkers.
We talked to people just to understand the victimology, understand what type of person she was.
All the people that they speak to just repeat the same things over and over again.
She really didn't have any enemies.
But then a woman named Maria Barnes contacts detectives.
Glass.
How do you know Alice?
She's my best friend that we worked together in 2005. Okay. And we've been friends since then.
Maria enlightened police that, yes, everything from the outside looking in was copacetic. But being Alice's best friend, Maria knew the inside tea, if you will.
Maria confirms what Ruel's mother said, that a lot of the couple's issues stemmed from Ruel's stint in jail.
When he was incarcerated, she always put herself second.
She worked jobs, she took extra shifts. She did whatever she had to do to keep that family unit running. And now she was tired.
She wanted it to work for the sake of her children.
It feels like a constant race to make ends meet.
And even after he was out of jail, Ruel was little help.
She needed him to get a job and to take care of the family, and he wasn't doing that.
Alice was frustrated in her marriage.
And despite Alice being the couple's primary provider, Ruel still insisted on calling the shots.
It might be cultural, I don't know, but she always kept him as the head of the household.
He was very jealous and controlling. He was constantly trying to control Alice.
And contrary to what Ruel's mother claimed, Maria says the relationship was violent.
Maria has had a front row seat to the violent tendencies.
But she never told me he hit her.
According to Maria, she didn't have to.
Sometimes she would have bruises and marks on her body.
Maria tells the detectives that Alice had finally stood up for herself and asked him to leave.
When did she ask him to leave?
Maybe a month ago, I think.
Did he leave?
Yeah, he wasn't there.
But Maria said Alice eventually let Ruel return.
The kids were sick, and she said he came. She allowed him to come in because she had to go to work.
Maria says the couple was soon squabbling again.
He would take her keys. So she
But according to Maria, Alice was determined to leave permanently.
Alice was ready to end this relationship and get away from Ruel.
She was in the process of moving on.
and she started seeing somebody else.
Alice Dennis's friend, Maria Barnes, has just told Silver Spring detectives that Alice was planning to leave her husband, Ruel Dempster.
I just don't want this no more. No, you can't go in there.
I'm sick of it.
I don't care.
Alice decided to move on with her life because her home was completely dysfunctional, abusive, and toxic.
And according to her friend Maria, Alice wasn't just moving on. She was moving on with a new man.
You know who she was seeing?
His name is Caleb Weaver.
It was a relatively new relationship for her. It had only developed recently prior to her death, maybe a month or two before.
This man had been helping her cope with being the caregiver to 2 children and running herself ragged, trying to work multiple shifts to keep up with the bills and keep up with her husband.
So now detectives are wondering, had Ruel found out about Caleb?
Or had Caleb grown frustrated waiting for Alice to kick her husband to the curb?
Could this man have been in a jealous rage and also done something to Ruel?
The jealous boyfriend is obviously always going to be a likely suspect.
After talking to Maria, detectives take a look into Caleb Weaver's background.
He had no significant rap sheet or any red flags indicating a history of violence.
But that doesn't mean he couldn't be involved somehow.
We want to talk to this person and see what he will disclose and what we can corroborate about his relationship and the development of that relationship with Ms. Dennis.
When the detectives bring Caleb in for questioning, he doesn't deny being involved with Alice.
The secret.
The what?
The secret. She's messing with a little bit.
He said they've only been dating for a few weeks, though.
And how'd you meet her?
I already knew her from the neighborhood.
He happened to become her confidant.
She did confide in him about long-term abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, assaults. Just a very difficult home life. And he felt compassion for her.
She was always being the supporter. So this was finally a place where she could kind of lean on someone else.
But when detectives asked Caleb if he was upset that her husband was still around, Caleb insists he wasn't.
He said that she made it clear to him that she and Ruel were no longer in a relationship.
To my knowledge, he wasn't even supposed to be coming over here. Only reason she let him over here is so she could watch the kids while she go to work.
And according to Caleb, Alice was about to file for divorce.
She realized that she could not salvage this relationship, and she wanted more for herself.
Okay, so you guys are sleeping together. Okay, sleep at your apartment or her apartment?
Although, rather than spend the night, Caleb said Alice would mostly come by in the afternoon.
So she would stop at your place? Okay.
Because the kids would still be at home with the club.
That's where the kids were when Ruel's parents picked them up on the day Alice and Ruel went missing.
Which leads detectives to their next question. When Caleb last saw Alice.
He said that the last time was 2 days before her body was discovered.
He met her over at a friend's house on Saturday night, after Ruel's parents broke up the argument between the couple.
So you're with Alice from Saturday night to Sunday morning?
Yes.
And according to Caleb, Alice's fight with Ruel was about him.
He kept telling her, like, tell the kids who you messing with, what's his name and all that.
He's suspecting that she's cheating.
Yeah.
But he can't figure out who.
Yep.
Ruel had gone through her text messages.
Caleb said Alice owned up to the infidelity, but had given Ruel a false name.
She told him he was messing with some guy named Jerome or something like that.
She feared that he would retaliate with violence.
To make dinner for her kids.
But he said he did speak to her on the phone again on Monday evening.
And according to Caleb, Alice said something during that phone call that seems ominous in hindsight.
She said something happens to me, you did it.
Caleb said at the time he thought she was just kidding around.
But now that Alice is dead, the detectives suspect she was deathly serious.
Thank you for your time.
Police know after speaking with Caleb that they need to find Ruel.
When the detectives get Ruel and Alice's phone records, they prove to be a dead end.
From the report, it was clear that both phones had been turned off since the murder.
We could not locate him by using his cell site technology.
Still, the detectives keep trying.
Any possible connection to him, they were calling and trying to find out, have you talked to him, have you heard from him?
They also pull Ruel's criminal record.
Ruel had been on parole, federal parole, for a weapons charge.
But that's not the only thing they find on his record.
He was charged with manslaughter.
He had been suspected in the death of a police officer.
Detectives investigating the murder of Alice Dennis have learned that her husband Ruel Dempster's rap sheet includes a decade-old manslaughter charge.
He was the driver in a traffic incident in which he fled and he led police on a high-speed pursuit.
During the pursuit, one officer stepped out of his car and was run over by another driver.
He was tried under the theory that his fleeing the police was essentially the domino that caused these other dominoes to fall.
The case went to trial, but Ruel was acquitted.
The jury essentially found that his actions were too attenuated from the actual death of the officer.
Then, a few years later, he'd been picked up on a firearms charge.
Ruel pled guilty on that charge and spent 3 years in federal prison.
He might have been a little bit violent before, but 3 years behind bars can really escalate some of these activities and behaviors.
Did that mean Ruel was a killer?
Come take a look at this.
The key to the mystery may be in the security footage the detectives received from the couple's apartment complex.
In this case, we had the good fortune of having surveillance video.
Following the surveillance video, we saw Ruel leave the home on the morning of the 17th with his children. He took them to the roadway at the intersection of the complex, and he walked back to his home.
In the video, he was wearing a black hoodie and some light-colored pants.
Within 1 hour of him coming back from walking his children, you see him leaving again with the same hoodie, but different pants.
He's also carrying a small duffel bag.
He walked in the same direction, but he made a right as if he was walking to a bus stop. There were several bus stops along the roadway.
Essentially, he drops off the map for the next few weeks.
Fast forwarding through the rest of the video, it's clear Ruel never returns to the apartment, and Alice is never seen leaving it.
There were no signs of anyone else approaching the apartment either.
So we assumed that he packed some things after killing Alice, left the home, got in a bus, and never came back.
Whether he had a weapon in that duffel bag or not, we don't know for certain.
But the detectives are certain of one thing.
There was a bunch of factors that when you looked at them in conjunction, made it clear that Ruel committed this murder.
The surveillance video, the pending breakup, the history of abuse, and Ruel's suspicion that Alice was seeing someone else all pointed to him as the killer.
And the mere fact that he was trying not to be found is also suspicious when your wife is brutally murdered.
Add it all up, and it's more than enough for an arrest warrant.
The arrest warrant goes into a computer database so that any law enforcement officer could apprehend the person.
News of the arrest warrant also generates several tips.
First was from a man in Baltimore who said he was Ruel's cousin.
This murder happened on Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, he showed up in Baltimore.
And according to his cousin, the next morning, Ruel took a rideshare to the bus station.
He was on his phone with the bus tickets.
Based on the tip, the detectives focused their efforts on Virginia.
Several days went by, and we continued to work with other agencies to help us locate Ruel.
But the trail grows cold.
He knew how to disappear. This man used burner phones. He was on Snapchat with disappearing messages. There was no real way to pinpoint Ruel's location.
Until after more than a week of fruitless searching, the detectives finally get a lead when Ruel's brother makes a surprise visit to the police station.
Ruel was sending his brother messages.
He called from apps, so they were unable to determine where he was calling from.
So do you know where he is?
No, I don't. One time he said he was in Minnesota, then the next time he said he was in Montreal.
Those were both places with a big Liberian community.
Wherever Ruel was, what he said on the calls was disturbing.
This family member said to me, he sounds like he's mentally in distress. He did not sound like himself.
Maybe he is mentally unstable. Maybe he had a mental breakdown.
It just sounded really disturbing every time he calls. It's like he just wouldn't stop talking about the devil.
He felt his body had been possessed by Lucifer, and he didn't know what to do.
I mean, I told him to turn his F in, and I just don't think he's gonna do that.
Well, let us know if he contacts you again.
With that information, we reached out to the Canadian Border Patrol to assist us in locating him.
But then another tip comes in.
He reached out to a friend who heard that Alice was killed.
This friend straight up asked if he was responsible for Alice's death, and he said no.
And he told her, to lose his number, erase the conversation, take care of yourself. We're never gonna talk again.
Instead, his friend gave the number to police.
And the phone number that he used, we were able to determine was registered to Mexico.
Maryland detectives investigating the murder of 34-year-old Alice Dennis have learned that her husband, Ruel Dempster, may have fled to Mexico.
While on the run, he had contacted a friend, which eventually led police to trace some of his calls.
The phone number that he used was a registered number from Mexico.
Tipped off by Ruel's friend, the detectives alert law enforcement on both sides of the border.
On May 7th, he's caught by Mexican police after 3 weeks completely on the lam.
He denied being Ruel Dempster, but they sent me a photograph of him, and I said, that's indeed Ruel Dempster. We got him.
Ruel was immediately detained and extradited back to Silver Spring, Maryland.
More than 2 months after the murder, the detectives are finally able to sit down with Ruel.
He asked what he was charged with. I said murder.
You brutally murdered your wife, and you left her there. That is how it looks, okay?
The word murder came out, and he became fixated on whether it was premeditated or not. Because how can you charge me with murder if it's not premeditated?
All I've asked from you is just to tell me the truth. It wasn't premeditated.
And I said, well, I'm not saying you planned any of this out.
You stumbled across some information that Alice probably didn't want you to see, and you lost it.
But Ruel says it wasn't like that at all.
Asked whether or not he had killed her, he never denied it, he never admitted it.
When he was confronted with the evidence against him, he blamed someone else, like any coward would. He blamed spiritual warfare. He blamed demons in his head.
He settled on the notion that spiritual or spirits or something like that was sort of the guiding force behind his behavior.
The demons, they just took over.
But then he started to backtrack from that just a little bit.
He says at one point that he doesn't remember what happened.
Oh, I lost it like I blacked out.
But his actions after the murder speak otherwise.
He had the awareness to nearly successfully flee the country, and he already was thinking about his defense and how this was not a premeditated murder.
We sort of went round and round and round.
He gave a nearly 6-hour meandering interview.
And we got some good information out of him to the extent where he at least tacitly admitted to committing the crime without saying he committed the crime.
Even without an explicit confession, the prosecutors are confident they can secure a conviction.
We had a strong circumstantial case based on Ruel's behavior before the murder. We saw the violence, the controlling behavior, the jealousy, the anger, the fights.
He wanted to portray this persona of I'm a strong man and I'm in control of my home. But when he lost that control, it was hard for him to deal with it.
And that was before he found out that Alice was seeing someone else.
Ruel had gone through her phone, had found text messages, and had become very jealous and controlling. That quickly devolved into a fight between Alice and Ruel. That fight became so bad that Alice called Ruel's parents.
Ruel's parents were able to calm things down, temporarily.
That was the same night neighbors saw Alice crying on the stairs outside of the apartment.
Alice left for the night, and then Ruel's parents took the children.
She'd spent the night and most of the next day with her new boyfriend, Caleb.
She stayed out to kind of stay away and give him time to cool down, and the grandparents continued to take care of the children.
And she hadn't gone home until Sunday evening.
Alice assumed everything was back to normal.
But she was wrong. That Tuesday morning, as he walked their kids to the bus stop, Ruel made a fateful decision.
She made it clear to him that she no longer wanted to be with him, and he was not ready to allow her to move on. Because in his mind, that's his wife, his property.
And when he got back to the apartment, he made sure she would never leave him.
Ruel, what are you doing? What?
You gonna cheat on me? What? You think you're gonna just mess around on me and get away with it?
She's savagely killed, and then he tries to make it across the Mexican border.
Ruel thought that he was smarter than the police and that he could kill her and just move on with life.
But instead, Ruel would be going to prison for 40 years.
He ended up taking a plea deal.
40 years is the maximum he could have received for a second degree. We certainly would have tried the case on a first degree premeditation theory, but there would have been challenges. And we also spared their children having to relive, the events.
I always feel like it's better to not re-traumatize them by making them testify. So, am I satisfied with the plea deal for the children's sake? Yes, but it doesn't take away what happened to Alice.
And it doesn't make what comes after any easier.
People have to make some really big decisions about how do we move forward, how do we grieve, how do we help the kids grieve.
They've lost their mom and their father. That's a hard blow for a child.
Unfortunately, domestic violence has no zip code. It's important that people realize that Alice's story could be almost any woman that you know.
including a loving mother doing her very best to not only raise her children, but help others as well.
Alice Dennis was a life cut far too short. I don't know how many times we have to hear on the news or watch in a television show to hear about yet another woman dying at the hands of an abusive partner.
What happened to Alice Dennis was just the ultimate manifestation of how bad it gets when domestic violence continues to go unchecked.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Scientifically to one victim. The composite picture of the killer, assembled over decades, finally has a face. The news of the DNA match sent shockwaves through the victims' families, a complex mixture of vindication, anger, and heartbreak. The FBI had called us, and they let us know that they had a DNA match. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. The sheer improbability, the decades of waiting, made the news almost surreal. I got a call from our case agent, and they were bringing up Alan Wade Wilmer. It was just like, oh my God, oh my God. The raw emotion, the overwhelming nature of the truth cannot be contained. Our family went through so much frickin' heartache and pain, wondering what the F happened to my brother. You know, and come to find out, they had the right guy the whole frickin' time. The anger, the profound sense of wasted years and missed opportunities is palpable. When you talk about anger, there's been like 35 years worth of anger. It's maddening. The deep, festering wound of knowing the killer was within reach, yet untouchable. For so long, there it was, in the very beginning. I'm still angry about it to this day. I thought it was outrageous. The feeling of betrayal, that the system failed, is intense. They told my family they were looking at Waterman, but this is that guy. The bitter irony, the painful reality of a lead missed, adds to the profound sense of injustice. It always makes me wonder, could law enforcement have prevented the things that followed? The deaths, the loss of life, the haunting question, a burden no investigator wishes to carry. The moment of Alan Wilmer's polygraph examination, the critical juncture where the investigation swerved away from him, becomes a source of intense regret and scrutiny. The FBI decided that impasse in a polygraph was enough to say he's not the one. The decision was made, and that wasn't made by me. Another investigator reflects, hinting at internal dissent or procedural limitations. I can't say we let him go, but we didn't do enough. The nuanced admission, the acknowledgement of an error in judgment, is powerful. I would have done anything, threatened him anything else to try to get into it, admit to it, but I don't think he was the kind of person that would. The investigator recognizes Wilmer's intrinsic nature, his resistance to confession. He passed a polygraph, but so what? He also happens to be a sociopath, so he doesn't react. Thus, a polygraph is useless. This is a crucial psychological insight into the limitations of investigative tools when dealing with certain personality types. A sociopath lacks empathy, a conscience, and often, the physiological responses that polygraphs are designed to detect. He's not capable of emotion. Someone like Wilmer, I killed 2 people today. Big deal. That's what makes him so dangerous. The cold, detached indifference is the most chilling aspect of his evil. The lingering question, after a single DNA hit in a quadruple double murder, is why there is only a DNA hit on one case when there are 4 double murders that everyone says are connected. One possible answer is, no evidence contained any perpetrator DNA. Robin and David's murder, that is the only one of the 4 that there was actual known DNA evidence. This highlights the difficulty in securing definitive forensic links, especially in earlier decades. But with Alan Wilmer Sr. now identified as the killer, a chilling reconstruction of his crime spree takes shape. So, what is known about the 4 Colonial Parkway double homicides, now seen through the lens of Alan Wilmer's identity? At the very beginning, the FBI behavioral profilers said, Waterman, the intuition was accurate from the start. The first 3, all of them took place right against the water, either the York River or the James River, perfectly aligning with Wilmer's profession and lifestyle. You're dealing with a creature from the Black Lagoon, a vivid, evocative metaphor for a predator emerging from the water. His evolving methodology reveals a learning curve, a refinement of his monstrous craft. It's possible that in the first murder, he spots Kathy and Rebecca in a vulnerable state, and lovers land together in a car, approaches them, he strangles them, and he slashes their throats. The double act of strangulation and post-mortem slashing indicates a profound rage and desire for control. They put them in Kathy's Honda, soaked it in diesel fuel, tried to burn it, then he shoved it over the embankment, assuming it would sink in the river and disappear. His attempted disposal is a disaster, the diesel failing to ignite, the car only partially submerged, revealing the victim. In the second killing, David Knobling and Robin Edwards, he adapts his methods based on the first failure. He sodomizes Robin Edwards, and he shoots her in the back of the head. David is shot in the shoulder and the back of the head. The introduction of sexual violence, and a different method of killing marks an evil. They're thrown in the river, assuming they'll float away, but they wind up trapped under the embankment. Another failure in disposal, ironically leaving behind the crucial DNA that would decades later identify him. However, DNA this time remains behind, which ultimately becomes his undoing. The microscopic evidence, preserved against all odds, proved more tenacious than the killer's cunning. By Keith and Cassandra's murder, he had perfected his craft, learning from previous blunders. His disposal method becomes chillingly effective. If this was his third murder, he abducted and killed them, threw them in the water. And here's where his profession truly served his monstrous intent. He went out, and he fished. Or stirred from that boat. How hard would it have been to take them out on that boat and dispose of their bodies? It would have been very easy. The waters that provided his livelihood also provided the perfect, inscrutable grave for his victims, ensuring their remains were never found. The fourth murder, Daniel Lauer and Anna Maria Phelps, reveals another adaptation, a shift away from the direct waterfront to avoid scrutiny. They are discovered miles away from the parkway. His familiarity with hunting grounds explains this shift. My best speculation is they stopped at the eastbound rest area of New Kent. That's where Wilma took control of them, and then they were carried to these two positions where they were found. His local knowledge, his access to remote hunting land, offered new opportunities for concealment. It seems he learns from his mistakes. He gets better at disposing of remains. The cold, analytical assessment of a killer's improving efficacy is profoundly unsettling. Does he hate them? What motive could there be? Maybe just a willingness to kill, and perhaps that's the only motive he needs. The simple, terrifying truth might be that the act itself was the primary driver, a perverse satisfaction derived from the ultimate act of control and destruction. Now we've learned that Wilma's sphere was even larger, extending beyond the Colonial Parkway murders, revealing an even more prolific pattern of violence. We now have some evidence that we can weigh against these other cases. The DNA hit in the Robin and David Knobling case wasn't isolated. Here, we have Alan Wilma. We have him tied to the murder of Robin and David. Luckily, we got DNA from that, but that wasn't the only crime his DNA hit on. The chilling realization of additional victims broadens the scope of his depravity. He was tied to another murder of a lady in Hampton, Virginia, a case previously unconnected. There was a 29-year-old woman named Teresa Howell, who left the nightclub and disappeared. She was found naked, strangled, and raped. And the perpetrator DNA was none other than Alan Wilma Sr. This discovery profoundly alters the understanding of his victim. We now know that he killed people that were alone. So the net gets cast pretty wide to look at cases that this guy may have been involved with. The full extent of his murderous spree may never be fully known, a testament to his skill at evasion and the limitations of forensic science over time. Well, it's always difficult to say what will happen now, with the killer deceased. Will the DNA science advance further? Will they be able to determine something from some of these cases, even the ones lacking direct perpetrator DNA, to link him directly to the crime? It's entirely possible. The ongoing evolution of forensic technology offers a glimmer of future clarity. However, the legal reality is stark. Prosecution will never occur. You can't prosecute a dead guy. This profound anticlimax is a source of frustration for many, but I hope he's facing some kind of judgment, a wish for cosmic justice to prevail where earthly justice cannot. Well, you would hope so. Perhaps he moved to a higher court. The spiritual invocation reflects a universal human need for accountability beyond the mortal realm. If we had had hindsight in law enforcement, in general, FBI, state police, or the White County Sheriff's Office, this would have been handled different. The admission, years later, of the potential for a different outcome is a raw acknowledgement of the painful truth that a predator was not stopped when he could have been. But the only answers we can really for sure give is to Miss Howell's family, the Noblin family, and the Edwards family. These are the families who received the unequivocal, irrefutable truth, a modicum of closure that was denied to others. The FBI and the Virginia State Police, they have not stopped, and I hope they can tie him to any and all of them. All of these families deserve answers. The commitment remains a testament to the enduring quest for justice. The impact on the families remains a heartbreaking constant. Their grief as fresh as the day the news first broke. This completely destroyed my mother. The stark, absolute devastation. In one night, she lost her only daughter, her youngest child, and her best friend. The multiple losses, intertwined and profound, shattered her life. This is a solvable case. All it takes is time, attention, and resources. A plea and a conviction from a brother who refuses to let his sister's memory fade. It's not something that we ever wanted to be burying a younger brother. Keith was just starting out his life. He had aspirations. He was a good kid. The tender memories, the hopes for a future that was never realized, are painful to recount. I hated that he didn't have the opportunity to grow up and to have a family. I mean, that got robbed, Keith. He robbed him of a whole entire life. The profound sense of a stolen future, an entire existence erased, is at the core of their anguish. That was my big brother. Man, doesn't get any tighter than that. The unbreakable bond of sibling love, ruptured by senseless violence. I mean, it's not fair. I've missed so much for them. I know my life would have been so much different if he was still in it. God, I wish he was still here. The raw, unvarnished yearning for a lost loved one, for the trajectory of life to have been otherwise, echoes through the decades. The narrator then turns to the final, chilling irony of Alan Wilmer's fate, and the philosophical question of justice. Some people never have to pay the bill for what they've done in their life. They just crook like everybody does. The observation speaks to the imperfections of human justice. I'll be quite frank with you. I hope there is a special place in hell for this man. The raw, unfiltered anger, the desire for retribution in an ultimate sense, is understandable given the scope of his crimes. And every day, what he did to those kids is done to him for eternity. Then, maybe, it'll be a little bit of justice. This desperate yearning for balance, for a metaphysical accounting, reflects the profound human need for justice. There's supposed to be justice and punishment. Were always the case. Wilmer denied the hangman's notes, escaping earthly consequences through natural death. However, he died in his hovel of a trailer and turned into a puddle of DNA. The grotesque image of his solitary, decaying end is a fitting, if grim, irony. The very physical remnant of his body leading to his posthumous unmasking. No one cared about Alan. The tragic, isolated end of a man who cared only for himself. Maybe Alan didn't either. He cared about killing, and he got pretty good at it. The chilling summation of a life defined by cold-blooded murder. The final thoughts echo the enduring mystery of profound evil. So what kind of things were these voices saying to you? The question probes the inner demons, the motivations, the warped psychology that drives such acts. There are people in this world who are patently evil. My mind went to that. Someone took her. Someone was trafficking her. The instinct to understand the darkness, to explain the inexplicable, is a driving force. Do you think you didn't commit the jury that you don't have nothing to do with that? The challenge of breaking through denial, of facing a remorseless individual. I just felt like, I've got to solve this case. The deep, personal imperative that fuels dedicated detectives. A lot of murderers are emotional when they take a life. Not him. He's cold as ice. The terrifying insight into the sociopathic mind, devoid of remorse or feeling. How much worse will it be if we don't get who did this? And I'm what? What do you mean they've been murdered? We're not just the police. We're the murder police. When Cain busted a cap in Abel, did he send a uniform to take the report? No. He sent a Fing detective. The dramatic conclusion, referencing ancient tales of underscores the primal nature of murder and the specialized calling of those who pursue justice against such profound evils. The chilling silence that follows a sudden disappearance can be far more deafening than any scream. It leaves an emptiness, a void filled only with agonizing questions and a growing dread. The last time anyone saw Sherry Prather was October 12th. One day she was here, vibrant and alive, an integral part of her family's universe. The next, she had simply vanished into thin air. leaving behind only worry and annoying uncertainty. About 3 weeks later, in the cold, unforgiving embrace of the woods, detectives found her remains. A missing person case had grimly, devastatingly, escalated to a homicide. The detective's voice, sharp and unwavering, cuts through the tension of a potential confession. Listen though, I need the truth right now. Your only last chance to tell me the truth. It is a moment of profound pressure, a calculated push against the defenses of a suspect. The response, tinged with feigned innocence and desperation, is predictable. This is the honest truth. I'm scared right now. I didn't do this. This is the dance of interrogation, a psychological chess match where every move, every word, carries immense weight. As any seasoned investigator understands, when you interrogate someone, you don't know what they're going to do when they're faced with pressure. The raw nerves, the attempts at manipulation, the unexpected outbursts, all are part of the complex human reaction to being cornered by truth. The detective, however, is not easily swayed by theatrical denials. You're lying. The direct accusation pierces the veneer of innocence, pushing for a break. What's lying? The feigned ignorance, the attempt to deflect, only confirms the suspicion. The criminal mind, especially one with a deeply entrenched habit of deceit, often only yields what is absolutely unavoidable. He was only admitting to what he couldn't deny and denying what we couldn't prove. This shrewd observation distills the essence of a hardened suspect, a master of selective truth. I didn't do anything. The flat, unwavering denial, even in the face of mounting evidence, is a hallmark of certain persons. He's only capable of one thing, and that is rage. This chilling assessment reveals a volatile, dangerous individual, a creature ruled by impulse and aggression. He's unpredictable and he wants people to fear him. The desire for intimidation, the theatrical display of unrestrained emotion, becomes a tool for control. A vivid image then punctuates this analysis. He is banging his head as hard as he possibly can on the interrogation table. It is a desperate, violent act, designed perhaps to elicit sympathy, to express frustration, or simply to unleash an internal fury. The detective's dry, unwavering assessment follows. Wow, you're really crazy. A subtle jab, a professional challenge to a man attempting to project a terrifying persona. I spent my career closing murder cases, the voice of experience and echoing the sentiment of all who dedicate their lives to the pursuit of justice. But I'm not the only one who answered the call. It takes a rare breath to solve the unsolvable, to catch the ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead. That's what it takes to be an American detective. This is more than a job description. It is a calling, a profound commitment to the principle that every life matters, every crime deserves resolution, and every victim deserves a voice in the halls of justice. The narrative shifts to introduce a key player in this specific quest for truth. I am Michelle. Her voice carries the authority and composure of years spent navigating the darkest corners of human behavior. I was a homicide detective back in 2012 for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Her journey into this elite unit, however, was not without its own professional path. As a detective, I was in child abuse and sex crimes. 4 years of sex crimes really wears on you, and it was time for me to move on and make change. The immense emotional toll of dealing with such horrific cases, the constant exposure to unspeakable cruelty, pushed her towards a new challenge, a different battlefield in the war against crime. So homicide was the only step up from there, and I thought I was good enough to be in the elite club. This aspiration speaks to a profound self-belief, a drive to excel in the most demanding of investigative fields. Entering homicide as a woman presented its own unique set of hurdles. It's rare for females to go to homicide. It's definitely rare for females to stick around in homicide. The traditionally male-dominated environment, the inherent pressures, often deterred women. But Michelle Salek possessed the resilience and talent to thrive. Once I proved myself and proved my work ethic and solved my first whodunit case, I gained a lot of respect from the guys, and I stayed in that unit for 10 years. Her tenacity, her innate ability to unravel complex mysteries, earned her a permanent place in the specialized world of homicide investigation. This established her as not just competent, but exceptional. Someone with the unwavering resolve to pursue justice, no matter how complex or frustrating the path. The wheels of justice, or in this case, the gears of investigation, begin to turn on a seemingly ordinary day. So I was just in the office working a normal day, and I got a phone call that missing persons Detectives had been working a case for a little over a month of a missing woman named Sherry. The initial information is sparse but carries the weight of a looming tragedy. Sherry Prather had been gone for far too long for comfort. The last time anyone saw Sherry Prather was October 12th. Her family, gripped by an understandable panic, reported her missing 3 days later. The quick notification indicated the immediate distress of those closest to her, a premonition that something was terribly wrong. Sherry Prather was, to her mother, a universe. Well, Sherry was my only child. I raised her by myself. She was just the love of my life. The profound connection, the singular importance of this daughter, underscores the unbearable pain of her absence. A snapshot of Sherry's last known moments adds to the This was Sherry. We took this on Wednesday, and the next day is when she disappeared. The mundane normality of a shared photograph, unaware of the impending catastrophe, becomes a haunting relic. The case, initially a missing persons investigation, took a dark turn with a crucial, unsettling tip. The missing persons detectives received a tip that Sherry's body was off of Braddock Road. The sheer specificity of the information, rather than a vague suspicion, immediately elevated its importance. This called for a strategic shift in investigative resources. So they called us out saying, "Hey, we just want to get y'all on board. So if we find her, you've already stepped into the case." Homicide detectives were now brought into the loop, prepared for the grim possibility that the missing person case would soon transform into a murder investigation. The location where the tip led them painted a stark, challenging picture. Braddock Road retains a lot of that rural look. This characteristic meant vast, untamed terrain, offering endless places for concealment. You can go for a half-mile in some directions, and there's nothing but two-lane road and pine woods on either side. Such an environment is a nightmare for search and recovery efforts. You look at what you're supposed to be searching. It's overwhelming. It's a daunting task. How are we going to find anything in this? The sheer scale of the task, the dense natural cover, presented formidable obstacles to locating human remains. Indeed, their initial efforts proved futile. Nobody could find her remains. Faced with the seemingly impossible, the investigative team deployed a specialized resource, a testament to the comprehensive approach required in such cases. So we had to call out a cadaver dog. These highly trained animals are crucial for locating human remains. Their acute sense of smell capable of detecting the subtle odors of decomposition that humans cannot. They thoroughly searched that area for several hours, the arduous process reflecting the difficulty of the terrain and the elusive nature of the objective. Despite the specialized help, the early hours of the search brought discouraging results, leading to a palpable frustration. And they began to believe, this is never going to happen. We're not going to find anything of value. The spirit of investigators, while resilient, is not immune to moments of doubt and weariness. Then, a sudden, thrilling break shattered the silence and dispelled the despair. And suddenly the dog alerts, sits down and barks. This trained, definitive signal electrified the team. The dog's silent, patient work had yielded a heartbreaking truth. And then there's this skull, shining in the middle of it all. The single, stark image of human remains confirmed their worst fears, transforming a rumor into a horrifying reality. We now know this is more than a rumor. There's a dead human here. The investigation, undeniably, had pivoted to a homicide. So when one human bone is discovered, a search of a wider area begins. The methodical, painstaking process of a crime scene recovery operation intensifies, meticulously combing through the vast area for every scrap of evidence, every fragment of truth. The expanded search confirmed the initial, grim discovery. They find a pair of shoes. They find a shirt. They find more bones. These scattered remnants, tragic artifacts of a lost life, spoke to the passage of time and the harshness of the environment. The bones look weathered, like they've been out there for a while. Florida's climate, with its intense heat and humidity, accelerated the decomposition process. Florida weather will do that. With the sun, the heat, the humidity, there is some level of decomposition that occurs in a month's time, of course, but a more disturbing factor also played a role. But the real issue is carnivore involvement. Animals, drawn by the scent of decay, had unfortunately scavenged the remains, scattering them and complicating the recovery effort. All the flesh had been picked away. That particular area of Braddock Road, there was quite a bit of scavenging out there. A particularly gruesome detail highlights this unfortunate reality. Matter of fact, A pelvic bone was found up in a tree where an animal probably scurried it up the tree. This presented investigators with a deeply challenging scene. So this is a tragic mess. The critical questions then became about identification and cause of death. So they have a collection of bones. Do they belong to Sherry Prather, or is it someone else they don't even know about? The medical examiner's office was the next crucial step. The remains were taken to the medical examiner's office, where forensic specialists worked diligently. They identified her as Sherry Prather. This vital piece of the puzzle, a name to the bones, brought a measure of certainty to the tragic discovery. We were able to do that through some dental records, a reliable method for identification when other markers are absent. And then more importantly, we really have to determine what the cause of death was, and that is a critical piece. This single determination would be the foundation of the entire murder investigation. Skeletal remains can speak to you if you listen, the narrator explains, emphasizing the skill and dedication of forensic anthropologists, who can coax silent stories from bone. We had a forensic anthropologist from the University of Florida come in, and they found what appeared to be a half-moon indentation in one of the ribs. This specific injury, though subtle, was significant, and then a fragmentation of one of her vertebrae that indicated that she was shot in the back. The definitive finding brought absolute clarity to the means of death. At that point, we knew it was the homicide. The truth was, now laid bare, Sherry Prather had been murdered. So now it's different. It's no longer a missing person. It's a dead person, and they were murdered. The cold reality of the term homicide now defined the case, and with it, a new level of urgency and resolve. And homicide detective Michelle Salick is on the coast, and she is not going to walk away from this. Her determination, her personal commitment, was now fully engaged. I just felt like, okay, this is it. I've got to solve this case. It was not just a case. It was a mission, driven by a profound sense of duty and empathy. The first, and often most difficult, step in a murder investigation is to notify the survivor, the loved ones whose lives have been irrevocably shattered. Michelle Salick knew the profound weight of this task, an experience no amount of training could fully prepare her for. Sherry's mother, Norma Ellis, recalls the devastating impact. When I look back, I really don't know how I got through it. The raw, enduring pain is evident. The knowledge of her daughter's final moments, compounded by the grim discovery, was almost unbearable. To know that she laid out there, and those animals ripped her apart. This agonizing detail, an image that would forever haunt her, was the hardest thing that I could protest, a deep violation that added immeasurable cruelty to the loss. Sherry Prather, the victim at the heart of this tragedy, was remembered as a beacon of joy and vivacity. The Shirley brother was seen as a happy person who sang her way through life. This depiction paints a picture of a light extinguished too soon. She was not alone in the world. She had 2 daughters. She had a mother who cared for her. She had friends. Her life was rich with connections and passions. She loved motorcycles. She was a great singer. She loved to go all over doing karaoke. Her infectious enthusiasm, her love for life, drew people to her. She loved to party. She could walk in any place, and wherever she went. When we left there, she was friends with everybody. Sherry was, simply put, a real loving person. The detective's purpose, therefore, transcended mere case resolution. I really wanted to find justice for Norma Ellis, for the death of her daughter. This deep-seated empathy fueled Michelle Salick's relentless pursuit, making Norma's closure a personal mission. With Sherry's identity confirmed and the cause of death established, Michelle began to immerse herself in the case files, scrutinizing every detail to reconstruct Sherry's last moments. And I read all the reports involved in this case. The methodical detective work involved piecing together a timeline, starting from the last verifiable sighting. I found out that Sherry Prather was last seen alive on October 12, 2012, leaving a bar on the north side called Boots and Bottles. This seemingly ordinary detail became the focal point of the nascent investigation. Boots and Bottles was known as a local bar, a kind of pool hall, with a distinct, often rugged, clientele. It had a reputation of being a little rowdy at times. Sometimes guys riding motorcycles. The atmosphere of the bar, its clientele, all formed a crucial part of the puzzle. The narrative of Sherry's final night began with her mother's care. The night she disappeared, Sherry's mother dropped her off at Boots and Bottles for a ladies' night out. This detail, a poignant act of maternal love, underscored the senselessness of what was to follow. And then by the next day, she hadn't called. She hadn't showed up. I knew something was wrong. Norma Ellis's maternal intuition, her immediate unease, proved horrifyingly accurate. The case, initially, got signed to the Missing Persons Unit. They started following up some pretty good leads. These early efforts, while not directly leading to a solution, built a foundation of information that would later be invaluable. During these interviews, her friends report that Sherry had been very distressed that day because she broke up with her boyfriend, so she wanted to go out and have a few drinks. This provided crucial context to Sherry's emotional state that evening, possibly making her more vulnerable. They all said that Sherry was a little tipsy that evening. Her altered state, combined with her distress, would certainly impair her judgment. Then came the pivotal, fateful decision that would lead her to her killer. She was invited to a party at a private home on Trout River Road, which is in the area. They said she met a guy in the bar who's a biker. The term biker here carries connotations of a certain subculture, an image of rebellion and machismo. And she asked him for a ride to this party. In her state, seeking escape or adventure, a ride from a seemingly friendly stranger seemed like a good idea. She gets on the back of a motorcycle that belongs to a stranger. This singular, trusting act was her undoing. He fires it up and roars off into the night. The image is cinematic, a moment of fleeting freedom transformed into tragic destiny. The last thing they see is the taillight of a motorcycle. A final, fading glimpse of Sherry, riding into the unknown. They drive off and nobody sees them again. The profound anonymity of this departure became the initial wall in the investigation. So who is that on the motorcycle of Sherry? Is he the reason she was reduced to bones? The brutal questions now loomed large over the investigation. The media coverage, once focused on the missing woman, quickly shifted to the grim discovery. Police identified human remains found in this wooded area last week as Sherry Prather. The Stark headline announced the tragic end to a desperate search. Prather was celebrating a girls' night out with her friends at Boots and Bottles on North Main Street. The focus on the bar, known for its specific clientele, became central. Now this is a biker bar. They don't have any surveillance tapes on purpose. This deliberate lack of recorded evidence, common in certain establishments seeking to avoid official scrutiny, presented a significant challenge to the investigators. However, nearby surveillance footage offered a tantalizing, albeit limited, glimpse of the truth. But across the street, there's another place of business that does. The presence of external cameras became a critical lifeline, and it showed our victim getting on the back of a motorcycle. The grainy footage, a silent witness, captured the defining moment. It clearly shows Sherry Prather with a male individual and driving away. While providing crucial confirmation, the identity of the driver remained obscured. We just know he was a white male. It appeared that he was bald, and it had been hard to know exactly who that was. The physical description, while partial, was a start. The motorcycle itself, however, offered a more distinctive clue. You can't see the biker's face, but you can clearly see the motorcycle. The specific make and model became the next piece of the puzzle. The fact that he's riding on a Honda is an enormous clue. In the subculture of bikers, this detail was almost an anomaly, a signpost to an individual standing apart from the norm. Now, in biker world, that is a felony. The narrator injects a touch of sardonic humor, highlighting the unspoken codes of the biker community. If you're not riding a Harley Davidson, you're not considered to be a biker. This insight into the niche culture immediately narrowed the field of potential suspects. So who is this guy? Michelle Salek, armed with this critical detail, now knew how to ask the right questions. So Salek goes to visit the bar to determine if they can learn who the biker is that Sherry left with. She adopts a strategic approach, using the Honda detail as her entry point. They make contact with a bartender, someone who, through daily observation, might hold the key. Detective Salek says, "Did you know a guy who rides a Honda that comes here all the time?" The precise question yielded an immediate, unequivocal answer. "Oh yeah. His name is Johnny Johnson. He's the only guy that rides a Honda at that bar." The unique identifier, the brand of his bike, had inadvertently made him stand out. What they said about Johnny Wayne Johnson is, he's rough. His nickname is Biking, the colloquial spelling underscoring his self-styled persona, and that's what he went by. His reputation, his rough edges, were part of his identity, and that he's from Iceland, and he's unpredictable. These were the descriptors offered by those who knew him in passing, creating an aura of exoticism and danger. Unpredictable enough to kill. Let's find out. Michelle Salek's determination solidified. This was their primary lead, and he needed to be interrogated. The search for this Icelandic Viking began. So they tracked down the Icelandic Viking, and by all accounts, he is true to his name. The initial impression reinforced the image he projected. He's a white male, pale, red beard. His physical characteristics aligned with the rough Nordic image. He's a big man. He's very large. The sheer imposing nature of his physique added to his intimidating presence. He looked like a Viking. He should have had a hatchet or a warhammer or something. The vivid imagery of a Norse warrior suggests a primal, almost theatrical quality to his appearance. He provided an Americanized name for convenience, confirming his self-appointed identity. He said his name in America is John Johnson, but in Iceland, his name is Magnus. The elaborate fabrication was already taking shape. He speaks with an Icelandic accent. It is slight, but it is audible. This detail, initially seen as genuine, would later reveal itself to be a meticulously cultivated affair. Michelle Solik approaches the interview with professionalism and directness. He is asked, how did he meet Sherry? To her surprise, he is extremely cooperative. This outward compliance, often a deceptive tactic, raises subtle alarms in a seasoned detective, and he replies, it was that night at Boots and Bottles. He readily confirms the central event, the point of their fateful connection. Sherry said she needs a ride to a party on Trout River Road, so he agrees to take her there. He doesn't deny that that was Sherry pranking on the back of his motorcycle. His openness about the initial facts seems to strengthen his alibi. Viking then continues his fabricated story. He says they drive to Trout River Road. They stop where this house is. Sherry says, let me go inside and talk to people, and then I'll get you in. This narrative positions Sherry as the initiator, creating distance between him and her subsequent fate. His story then takes a twist, designed to justify his departure. He said she went inside this house. I saw people looking out the window. It was a little sketchy. The detail about people looking out the window adds a suspicious, potentially dangerous, element to his story, designed to explain his actions. So I didn't know if I was going to get robbed, and so I left and I didn't see her again after that. His departure, therefore, was presented as a prudent act of completely absolving him of any further responsibility for Sherry's whereabouts. Michelle Solik, however, is a detective who meticulously verifies every detail. The odds would say there was some encounter at this party that resulted in her untimely demise. The intuitive suspicion of an experienced investigator. Viking, still playing the role of the cooperative witness, rode with us, pointed out, you know, this is the way we went. This is where I dropped her off. Michelle physically went to the location, the alleged party house. Selleck goes up and knocks, and gets no reply. She looks in the windows and decides this place has certainly seen better days. It's all in very poor condition. The state of disrepair immediately casts doubt on the idea of a vibrant, ongoing party. In a standard investigative move, she inserts a business card in the doorframe with her name and her phone number, an invitation for contact should anyone be in the vicinity. At that point, we had to find something else. The lead, while initially promising, had quickly run into a dead end based on the physical scene itself. That major question here, who did Sherry run into at this party? This question, now a red herring, needed a more thorough exploration. The previous missing persons reports had mentioned Sherry's turbulent relationship. Sherry's friends told the missing person detectives that she'd been in a dispute with her boyfriend. The argument, detailed by her friends, provided a potential, albeit premature, suspect. Well, earlier that day, she went over to his apartment, and they got into an argument, and she made him bring her home. And the whole time coming home, they were in an argument. The intensity of the conflict could, theoretically, have escalated to violence. So when someone says to me in a homicide case, well, she's got this boyfriend. Oh, I like boyfriends. What's his story? Michelle Selleck, like many homicide detectives, recognizes the commonality of domestic disputes, escalating into tragedy. It turns out the boyfriend's name is Daniel Dollison. Her mother, Norma Ellis, had a strong opinion of him. I didn't approve of him. He was real jealous of Sherry. This jealousy, a powerful emotion, immediately raised a red flag. And I always felt like he was parked in the parking lot or across the street watching who she left with, because I knew what type of person he was. The mother's intuition, the specific fear of Dollison's controlling nature, painted a picture of a man with potential motive. The next logical leap for the investigation was obvious. Well, what if Mr. Dollison follows Sherry to this party on Trout River Road, and the argument continues with alcohol involved and maybe a gun? Could that work? Oh, boy. Yeah. This initial theory, placing Dollison at the scene of the purported party, seemed to align perfectly with the known facts about his jealous temperament. We've been wondering if Sherry had run into someone at this house party. Could it have been her boyfriend, Daniel Dollison, that she ran into? And the arguments continue. Detectives find Daniel Dollison quite odd. He's not concealing himself anywhere, suggesting a clear conscience, or at least no immediate flight response. They asked him directly, "You had an argument that day. What was it about?" His forthrightness provided a candid look into their troubled relationship. "Well, I wanted her to move in with me, and she said, absolutely not." The reason for the argument was domestic, related to their living arrangements and Sherry's family obligations. Her mother was advancing in age. She planned on taking care of her. She took care of me and my 2 granddaughters, 4 girls living together in one house. Sherry's responsibilities and dedication to her family were clear. Michelle then probes the crucial question. "So did you go to this house party on Trout River Road and run into Sherry there?" "No, I did not. I went to my sister's house to talk about Sherry refusing to move in with me, and I spent the night there." This provided a solid alibi, complete with corroborating witnesses. And he said, "I didn't go down Braddock Road that night. I've never been down Braddock Road before." This crucial statement, denying any knowledge of the body disposal site, was critical. The alibi checks out completely. After thorough verification, Dollison had nothing to do with her disappearance or her death. Another plausible lead, carefully pursued, was conclusively eliminated. The profound sadness of his loss was then evident. He loves that girl. Now he knows he will never see her again. It's terrible to imagine that. I wanted to protect her from all that, and I couldn't be there. His grief, genuine and raw, absolved him as a suspect, yet implicated the cruelty of fate. Norma Ellis's desire for justice for Sherry also extended to Doc. "It won't be no closure for me until I see him thrive in the elected chair." A powerful, if colloquial, expression of a victim's mother's desire for retribution. With Daniel Dollison cleared, Selig is back to square one. Or so it seems. The party on Trout River Road now looks suspiciously thin. Where do we go now? At that point, I was starting to kind of run into a dead end. The momentary lull, the sense of hitting a wall, is a common experience in cold cases. Then she hears back from the people that own the house in the woods on Trout River Road, where she left her business card. This communication, a delayed response to her diligent efforts, provided the critical next piece of information. They were just, a normal menage, couple. They were back and forth because they were renovating the house. Their credible account offered a stark contradiction to Viking's narrative. They've never had a party in that house. The place has never been broken into. They were kind of just taken back of the whole story of why I even called them. The complete absence of a party, the lack of a break-in, shattered Viking's alibi. They never heard a motorcycle. They don't know anything about a Sherry. Their unequivocal denial left no room for doubt. 2 things become obvious to Selig after this meeting with these people, sharpening her focus on the one man whose story had just disintegrated. There's never been a party in this place, and the person who said there was is lying through his teeth. The clarity was undeniable, and his name is John Johnson, also known as Viking. The once cooperative witness was now undeniably a deceptive one. The only possibility for Johnny to be lying is he's involved in her death. The direct link, once a suspicion, now solidified into a core tenet of the investigation. At that point, he was a potential suspect, for sure. The subtle shift from a person of interest to a firm suspect marked a significant turn in Michelle Selig's journey for justice. So now Selig has someone to refocus upon. Johnny Wayne Johnson. The investigation shifted from merely interviewing a witness to meticulously building a profile of a suspect. All she knows about him is what he claims. He's Icelandic. He's 39 years old. His occupation is long-distance truck driver. These self-proclaimed details formed the initial, shaky foundation of his identity. However, deeper background checks began to paint a different, darker picture. I found out he spent time for a violent felony in Georgia. This significant piece of information revealed a propensity for violence, fundamentally changing Michelle's perception of him. She also learns that Johnny Johnson has an ex-wife named Samantha. I decided, you know what? Let's reach out to Johnny Wayne's ex. This decision was rooted in a keen understanding of human dynamics, particularly the nature of relationships and potential biases. Michelle Selig articulates a common wisdom among detectives. When you're speaking to the wife or girlfriend, there is a tendency to protect their loved one from you. This emotional loyalty can obstruct the truth. However, ex-wives don't defend, ex-wives attack. This stark, yet often accurate, generalization provided Michelle with a strategic approach, knowing that a former spouse, freed from the bonds of allegiance and often harboring resentments, might be more willing to share damning information. Samantha Burleson's story unfolded, painting a chilling picture of Johnny Wayne Johnson. My name is Samantha Burleson. In 2008, I met Johnny Wayne Johnson at a friend's birthday party. Her introduction begins innocently enough. Like many relationships, she was initially drawn to his mysterious allure. There was this guy that just kept staring at me, kind of the bad boy image, and quiet and mysterious. The intoxicating thrill of something new, especially after past disappointments, was a powerful draw. I was just getting out of a bad marriage. It was something new and exciting. The perfect prey for a predator disguised as an enigmatic charmer. But John changed as soon as we said, I do. The shift from charming to terrifying was abrupt and brutal. He went from a happy-go-lucky guy to somebody who literally terrified me. The revelation of his true, abusive nature. It was always mostly verbal threats. If you don't do this, I'm going to hurt you. The psychological torment, the constant fear, marked their relationship. We separated in October of 2011. The separation, however, did not fully free her from his orbit. We stayed in contact because you still wanted to be there for my kids. His manipulative grip persisted through his purported interest in her children. Michelle Salik's assessment of Samantha underscored the difficult emotional tightrope she was walking. My first impressions of Samantha was that she really wanted to cooperate, but she was terrified of Johnny Wayne. The profound fear she harbored was palpable. She wanted to tell us everything, but she was so nervous, and I can understand why. Samantha knew the depths of his volatility. Then came the chilling revelation directly connecting Johnny Wayne to Sherry's fate. Sherry Prather went missing early morning of October 20. Samantha Burleson told me a few days later. Johnny called her and asked to meet her at a park. The clandestine meeting, away from prying ears, now takes on a sinister hue. He started asking me these weird questions. He goes, "What would you do?" Or, "How would you get rid of a person's body?" The specificity of the question, delivered so soon after Sherry's disappearance, was horrifying. I was just laughing and joking because I thought he was joking. Samantha's initial, innocent reaction highlights the unexpected nature of the inquiry. Then, the conversation took an even darker turn. She said, "Braddock wrote, that's where she's at." This statement, seemingly casual, provided a direct, chilling link to the discovery site. I was like, "What are you talking about? Who's there?" "She's that, but don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it." The ominous casualness, the dismissive tone, painted a horrifying picture of a man utterly devoid of remorse. Samantha, at the time, dismissed it as his usual theatrics. I thought it was full of S. I thought it was trying to scare me. Samantha says that Viking is a pathological liar, reinforcing Michelle's own burgeoning understanding of his manipulative nature. He can't help himself but to lie constantly, to try to establish his persona as a mysterious and dangerous biker. His lies were not merely fabrications, but building blocks for a grandiose, terrifying. Johnny Wayne thrives off attention from people, so he wanted attention. This need for recognition, even for nefarious acts, fueled his boasts. This guy kept building himself up to everybody that would listen. "Hey, I'm a badass. Don't cross me. I'm to be feared and respected." The desperate craving for power, for intimidation, defined his public and private persona. Samantha sadly assumed it was another one of his fantasies, too familiar with his posturing. But when they found Sherry in the woods on Braddock Road, I did not, for the life of me, want to say anything. I was so scared. The confirmation of his macabre story, coupled with her profound fear of him, sealed her silence for years. Like all homicide detectives, Salik wants to build the strongest possible case against Viking. Samantha's testimony was compelling, but hearsay alone would not be enough. So she comes up with a plan that has some promise, a risky high-stakes endeavor to obtain direct evidence. We asked Samantha to wear a wire and meet up with Johnny Wayne in hopes that he would, again, talk about what he did to Sherry Prather that night. This was an incredibly dangerous thing to do. Samantha was already a victim of his psychological abuse, and still very much under his shadow. This is a person she is admittedly afraid of, but she agrees to try this. Her bravery, born of a profound sense of justice for Sherry, was remarkable. I wasn't hesitant because Sherry had a family. She had people that cared about her. That's why I did what I did. Her selfless courage, putting herself in harm's way, embodied the human spirit's refusal to let evil win. She wanted to help so bad because she wanted him to pay for what he did. The deep-seated desire for retribution fueled her risky undertaking. To create a plausible reason for the meeting, Salik devises a cover story. Viking is a little bit of a mechanic, so Salik tells Samantha to call and ask Viking to check out her truck to get the conversation started. This provided a natural, unassuming context for their meeting. Samantha's anxiety, despite her resolve, was palpable. Place the wire in my bra. I kept worrying that it was going to either find it or I was going to lose it. The physical discomfort, coupled with the profound fear of detection, made the mission incredibly stressful. I felt like everything was resting on my shoulders. It was just terrifying. The weight of a murder investigation, the fate of a killer, seemed to rest on her small, brave shoulders. So we have a plan in place to catch our man Viking into confessing to the crime of murder. Is it going to work? Well, we're about to find out. The narrator builds suspense, highlighting the high stakes of the operation. Samantha has agreed to wear a wire, which is an extremely brave thing to do, an act of sheer courage for a person who was legitimately terrified of the suspect. The meetup takes place in an unassuming, yet intimate, setting. It was at his mom's garage at her house. This domestic environment provided a facade of normalcy. Samantha's internal hopes were high, and I was really hoping okay, we're going to get this guy. But the profound danger of her mission was ever present. Having to wear a wire and confront somebody by yourself. You don't know if your next breath is going to be your last. The chilling thought, the acute awareness of mortal peril, weighed heavily. If they're going to find out that you were wearing a wire and betraying them, it's terrifying. So when he takes a look at her truck, she subtly shifts the conversation to Shari's murder, steering it towards the perilous topic. Okay, tell me the story. She uses an indirect, empathetic approach to invite confession. I said, "You're sure you're not in trouble, are you? You just drop it." But what really happened? She offers an opening, a gentle prod. But Viking, accustomed to suspicion and always vigilant, quickly grew paranoid. Every time she brought it up, he would basically shush her and say, "We're not talking about that." His evasion, his discomfort, was palpable through his sudden caution. I just think he was starting to get paranoid. The subtle shift in his demeanor, the awareness that his past boasting might now be a liability, led to an abrupt end of the conversation. And all of a sudden it dawns on his pea-sized brain that maybe me running in my mouth was a bad idea. The gentle satire here highlights the criminal's retrospective foolishness, his casual boasts, now returning to haunt him. So Samantha breaks the contact. She had done her absolute best. She tried her hardest. I mean, she really, really tried. The immense effort, the profound bravery, could not be questioned. When they thanked me for doing that, but I feel like I was letting the police officers down, because I didn't get John to say anything on tape. I was disappointed in myself. Her guilt, despite her courage, reveals a deep, selfless desire for justice. Despite the setback of the failed wire operation, Michelle Salik's resolve remained unbroken. Did they get what they wanted? No. But Sadik is determined to solve the death of Shari. The lack of a recorded confession was disappointing, but it did not deter her. At that point, we knew that Johnny Wayne Johnson was our suspect, but we had to find other means to prove it. The investigation needed more than just strong suspicion. It needed concrete, irrefutable evidence. Detective Sadik is a piece of evidence linking Viking to the scene or an eyewitness confession, something more than what she currently has. The specific forensic or testimonial breakthrough was paramount. The detective work continued, painstaking and methodical. We just continued our investigation and followed up on every tip. We talked to everybody possible at Boots and Bottle Bar. The dragnet was wide, relentless, seeking any stray piece of information that could crack the case. During her investigation, Sadik becomes aware that Viking has a current girlfriend whose name is Chelsea Burton. This relationship was another potential source of information, though fraught with its own challenges. The initial interview with Chelsea was illuminating for its subtle signs of fear. She was very scared. She was shaking the whole time we were talking to her. You can tell she didn't want to speak to us. This obvious distress immediately signaled that Chelsea was likely withholding information due to intimidation. Burton, in her initial account, tells the same exact story and sequence of events that Viking told Sadik. He had dropped off this girl from the bar at a party on Trunt River Road, and he came home at 2 o'clock and he went directly to bed. This narrative, mirroring Viking's discredited alibi, immediately branded her as an unreliable witness, coerced into protecting him. So what does that do? That provides Viking with an alibi. A false alibi. Carefully constructed, but still an alibi. She was just giving us enough information to act like she was cooperating, but just really not enough to do anything with. Michelle recognized the performance, the subtle dance of fear and protection. We were confident she knew more than she was telling us, so part of our strategy was, okay, they may not be willing to speak to us now, but this is going to be something we're going to need to come back to once, twice, maybe 3 times, and re-interview these people. Michelle's patience, her understanding of human psychology under duress, became a crucial element of her strategy, knowing that fear, over time, can dissipate or be overcome by guilt. Detective Sadek continues her relentless pursuit, broadening her network of informants and associates. She talks to everyone who's ever known or been associated with Viking, constructing a detailed tapestry of his life and connections. You're telling these people, you're not going to go away, signaling her unwavering determination. I didn't want to give up on this case. Her personal commitment, her refusal to allow Sherry's death to become another cold statistic, drove her forward. It's hard to know who is responsible for the death of somebody and not being able to put them behind bars, and I just wasn't willing to suspend the case and get rid of it. This moral imperative, this deep-seated belief in justice, was her guiding principle. As her time continues with this tale, Sadek becomes aware that Viking is not who he says he is. The carefully constructed persona, the exotic self-identity, began to crumble under Michelle's diligent investigation. He says he's an Icelandic man who spent over half his life in Iceland, and he is a descendant of Eric the Red. The self-aggrandizing narrative, designed to project an image of rugged, ancient lineage, was utterly false. The reality was far more mundane and far more pathetic. The reality is you're not Viking. You're Johnny Wayne Johnson from the trailer parks at Jacksonville, Florida. The blunt, unvarnished truth stripped away his theatrical facade. He's never even been to Iceland. He doesn't even have a passport. Every element of his carefully curated image was a lie. And your Icelandic accent is bull. And that's how he was talking the whole time. Just like this. That's not really how he talks. The cultivated accent, another layer of his elaborate deceit, reveal itself to be mere mimicry, a cheap theatrical trick. Johnny's need to intimidate, to project an aura of danger, stemmed from a profound sense of inadequacy. Johnny wants people to fear him. He dislikes himself to look bigger and badder. His external display of aggression was a compensation for internal weakness. I think that gives him some self-power that he intimidates people. The psychological boost he derived from others' fear was a primary motivator for his entire persona. He would talk about Viking gods and Thor. I mean, it was like the guy was living in a DC comic. The gentle satire highlights the absurdity and almost juvenile fantasy inherent in his. The elevator didn't go up to the top floor with this guy. A common, yet apt, expression for profound intellectual or emotional deficiency. Johnny Johnson is a pathetic human being. The harsh assessment is a direct result of unraveling his fraudulent identity. He invents this persona. How sad is that? You are so disgusted by who you are. You want to be someone else. That's very disturbed. Michelle Select's psychological insight cuts to the core of Johnny Wayne Johnson's troubled psyche, revealing a fragile, deeply insecure individual hiding behind a wall of manufactured menace. The passage of time, as Michelle Salek had predicted, proved to be an unexpected ally in her relentless pursuit of justice. So a couple years goes by, and I decided, you know what, let's reach out to Johnny Wayne's previous girlfriend again. Michelle's patient strategy, her belief in the human capacity to overcome fear for the sake of truth, began to pay dividends. I heard that they weren't dating anymore, so I thought, you know what, let's go find her and see if her story changes. The rupture of the relationship likely freed Chelsea from Johnny Wayne's direct intimidation. We made contact with her, and you would have thought the incident happened 5 minutes before we came there, because she was shaking. The trauma of his threats, the deep-seated fear he instilled, remained palpable, even after their separation. It took a long time to get her on board and to gain her trust, but she ended up talking to us. Michelle's empathy, her persistent reassurance, gradually broke through Chelsea's wall of fear. Chelsea, finally feeling safe enough to speak the truth, admitted that she did not tell us everything that time because she was in fear of her life. She was scared that he would kill her. This stark confession underscored the terrifying grip Johnny Wayne had held over her. She then shattered his carefully constructed alibi, speaking with raw, emotional honesty. She says that even though I told you he was home by 2 and he went to bed, that's not true. He didn't come home at all. This directly contradicted her previous statement, revealing the depth of her coercion. I didn't see him for 2 more days, so Viking's alibi just went up in smoke. The fabricated alibi, once a protective shield, now dissolved completely. More critically, Chelsea agreed to tell us what Johnny Wayne Johnson really told her, delivering the crucial eyewitness confession that Michelle Salek had relentlessly pursued. And that was that he did leave with Sherry Prother on the back of his motorcycle that night, leaving boots and bottles. This confirmed the critical initial sighting. And they did end up on Braddock Road, a horrifying confirmation of the body's location. And apparently he got mad and he shot and killed her and drove her into the woods. The brutal, concise revelation described the chilling sequence of events. Chelsea also provided details about his attempts to cover his tracks. Chelsea says he forced her to go with him to Braddock Road to look for expended casings to recover them from his pistol. This desperate act revealed his panicked efforts to remove evidence. She said that later he threw a gun out of her car window as they were crossing over a body of water. This attempted disposal, an act of desperation, hinted at the type of weapon and its ultimate fate. Most terrifyingly, Chelsea explained her silence. She said Johnny Wayne threatened her that night in her car. He told her if she ever told the police, he would kill her in front of her son. The direct, chilling threat, targeting her deepest vulnerability, ensured her silence for years. She was terrified, and I can understand why. Michelle's empathy here is profound, understanding the profound psychological grip he exerted. So it bought her silence for 2 years, but time changes things, and now she's come forward. The courage of Chelsea Burton, after years of living in terror, finally brought the truth to light. I'm really depending on her statement. This was, a case that I never thought we were going to resolve. The weight of Chelsea's testimony, after so many dead ends, was immense. It was the final, critical piece of the puzzle. With Chelsea Burton's explosive testimony, Michelle Salek had all the evidence she needed to finally confront Johnny Wayne Johnson directly. So, Salek frames Viking into an interrogation room, a setting specifically designed for the psychological pressure cookers of confession and truth. He's under the gun over something he thought was long forgotten. The killer, lulled into a false sense of security by years of silence, was now suddenly confronted by his past. But the police don't forget, and they don't forgive. This unwavering commitment to justice is a profound promise to victims. So now Viking is in the spotlight, and Salek is standing on his tail. The metaphorical image conveys the intense pressure, the unrelenting focus on the suspect. Michelle Salek's personal investment in this moment was immense. I was ecstatic, like it had been for years. I could not wait to hear his story. The anticipation of finally unraveling the truth, after years of painstaking work, was a powerful motivator. Michelle Salek, experienced as an interrogator, meticulously plans her approach to Johnny Wayne. She begins by bringing Viking into an interrogation room, and leaves him alone in that room, allowing the stark reality of his situation to sink in, and they close and lock the door. The finality of the latch clicking into place underscores his isolation. Now, who is Viking? This fearful guy with an invented personality. His bravado and fabricated identity, while potent in the outside world, began to buckle under the silent, isolating pressure of the interrogation room. His worst enemy is his mind. The narrator cleverly highlights his internal vulnerabilities. He begins to run with it. His paranoia. He seemed nervous because he started dry heaving into the trash can. When Michelle Salek finally re-enters, he attempts to garner sympathy, employing another manipulative tactic. You're sick. I gotta come in out the 2N. The doctors told me back today to do more blood work. They think I may have cancer. This melodramatic performance, the fabricated illness, is a transparent attempt to evade accountability. But Michelle, sharp as ever, sees right through it. Johnny, you're clearly lying. He doesn't have cancer. His emotions are making him sick. The blunt honesty, delivered with professional detachment, strips away his performative victim. Michelle then delves into the 2 different types of homicide suspects she has encountered throughout her career. There's the type that's going to say, F you as soon as you walk in the room. They ain't saying nothing. These are the hardened, defiant individuals who offer no quarter. And then there's the type that wants to keep talking because they want to know what you have. This is where Johnny Wayne Johnson, the attention seeker, firmly resides. He wants to gauge the extent of the police's knowledge, to play his hand accordingly. Michelle then starts, gently at first, confirming his past involvement, setting the trap. She invited him to retell his previous false narrative, allowing him to dig himself deeper. His unwavering commitment to the fabrication confirms his deceptive nature. The shift to direct confrontation comes next, gradually increasing the pressure. So, Johnny, you never confessed to your friends that you killed this girl. She starts to chip away at his composure, introducing the knowledge they have gained from others. He tells him people you know and have trusted have told us you have confessed to this crime and how you destroyed your gun and threw it in the river. The details are precise, damning. This revealed the extent of her evidence, forcing him to confront the betrayals he assumed would remain secret. You're not being honest, aren't you? But you gotta explain your side of the story. Initially, when Select begins her interview with Viking, she's polite, and she's nice, a calm facade before the storm. And then finally she moves to the next phase, adopting a more aggressive stance, pushing for a breakthrough. She starts to hammer him. You're lying. The repetition, the relentless accusation, is designed to break his resolve. There's a reason why you were on Braddock Road. She demands an explanation for his presence at the crime scene. He doubles down on his feigned ignorance. No, I don't even know what Braddock Road is. This desperate, transparent lie only solidifies her conviction. You think you're going to convince a jury that you don't have nothing to do with that? The question, implicitly threatening him with the full weight of the legal system, challenges his. I wanted to call him out on his obvious lies with grace. Even in her confrontation, Michelle maintains a professional demeanor, eschewing overt aggression for piercing logic. He was only admitting to what he couldn't deny, and denying what we couldn't prove. I didn't do murder. Well, I'm going to charge you with it. And we can prove it. The calm certainty in Michelle Selik's voice seals his fate. The interrogation concluded, Michelle began the administrative process of formally charging him. After about 4 hours of being with Johnny Wayne, I left the room to start my paperwork for my arrest office. The mundane reality of police procedure after such an intense confrontation. Then, Johnny Wayne, desperate for a final act of theatrical defiance, unleashed a violent outburst. And he stood up, and he violently just took his head and crashed his head into the table. This raw, self-inflicted violence was a desperate plea for attention, a performance of profound distress. The narrator, reflecting on the scene, injects a touch of sardonic humor, pointing to the obvious. I don't speak with an Icelandic accent, so therefore I have no idea. After the headbanging incident, EMTs are called to examine him and make a decision. He's probably going to be all right, underscoring the theatrical, rather than genuinely nature of his outburst. The performance concluded. The professional duties resumed. After that, I walked him over to the jail, and I booked him on the charges of murder, so that felt good. The satisfaction of an investigator, after years of dedicated work, finally securing the arrest of a murderer, is immense. Johnny Wayne did not confess to killing Sherry Prager, remaining defiant to the end, but he admitted enough to where it was going to make a positive impact on this case. Despite not getting a full confession, Michelle Selik, based on the totality of the evidence, had a clear opinion as to how Sherry Prager's murder likely unfolded. I think that once Johnny Wayne Johnson got down Braddock Road with Sherry, he probably was trying to have sex with her, and she probably rejected him. This common scenario of sexual assault escalating into fatal rage aligns with the type of violence often associated with such offenders. The poignant irony, the fatal flaw in his cunning. He most likely could have been away with it, but he kept talking. The moment of the arrest brought a wave of emotional release to those who had relentlessly pursued justice. Detective Selik called Norma Ellis. We thought we were going to actually have to go to trial, which we were ready for. The final outcome was delivered through a media report. Yesterday, 43-year-old Johnny Johnson was sentenced to 20.5 years behind bars. And finally, I was able to bring justice for Sherry Prager's family, and that felt wonderful. The profound satisfaction of delivering closure, of holding a killer accountable, was a reward unlike any other. For Sherry's mother, Norma Ellis, a tangible reminder of her lost child, carried close to her heart. Her anger, despite the conviction, remained fierce and raw. And they were talking about, look at it, the matter I get, what he did, and I wish I'd have killed him 1,000 times. I wish I had just went ahead and killed him. Prison's too good for him. This visceral desire for vengeance, the understandable rage of a grieving mother, highlights the inadequacy of any earthly punishment for such a heinous crime. The length of the sentence also left her with lingering anxieties. But what he did, I just feel like he didn't completely lose in this case. I mean, Johnny's still going to be young when he gets out of prison. The fear that he would eventually walk free, that he would still have a life, no matter how diminished, was a source of continuing torment. Are you going to be worried when he gets out? The poignant question hangs in the air, a testament to the enduring terror of a mother's heart. Norma's unwavering response, however, embodies profound resilience. I'm not worried of Johnny Wayne Johnson. He doesn't scare me. Her defiance, her refusal to be cowed by his evil, is a powerful act of love for her daughter. Is the ultimate testament to the human spirit in the face of profound evil. A new case, a new mystery, a new challenge for the forces of good. She was last seen at 6:45 at night, riding a purple bicycle. Every parent's worst nightmare unfolds. Someone took her. Someone is trafficking her. The immediate fears of a community, fueled by inexplicable disappearance. Who lives in there, and what is his story? The focus shifts to a new potential perpetrator, a new mystery to unravel. He's saying, "You killed me, boy. Where could she be?" The ghostly whispers of victims, the haunting questions, drive the pursuit. We're not just the police. We're the murder police. When Cain busted a cap in Abel, did he send a uniform to take the report? No. He sent a fanged detective. The ancient echoes of biblical murder met with the timeless, relentless pursuit of the truth by those dedicated to bringing justice to the dead. The chilling silence that follows a sudden disappearance can be far more deafening than any scream. It leaves an emptiness, a void filled only with agonizing questions and a growing dread that festers in the pit of a family's collective stomach. The last time anyone saw Sherry Prather was October 12th. One day she was here, vibrant and alive, an integral part of her family's universe, full of laughter and a unique joy that brightened every room she entered. The next, she had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind only worry and annoying, unbearable uncertainty that deepened with each passing hour. For a heart-wrenching 3 weeks, her loved ones lived in this limbo of not knowing, clinging to slivers of hope, even as the shadow of despair lengthened. Then, about 3 weeks later, in the cold, unforgiving embrace of the dense, silent woods, far from any paved road, detectives found her remains. A missing person case had grimly, devastatingly, escalated to a homicide, extinguishing the last flicker of hope and replacing it with a searing, permanent pain. The serene quiet of the forest, meant for contemplation and natural beauty, became a silent witness to a brutal end. Listen, though. I need the truth right now. Your only last chance to tell me the truth. It is a moment of profound pressure. This is the honest truth. I'm scared right now. I didn't do this. This is the intricate dance of interrogation. A psychological chess match where every strategic move, every uttered word, carries immense, life-altering weight for both the accuser and the accused. As any seasoned investigator, having walked through the grim corridors of countless crime scenes, fully understands, when you interrogate someone, you don't know what they're going to do when they're faced with pressure. The raw nerves exposed under the bright, unforgiving lights of an interrogation room, the desperate attempts at manipulation, the unexpected, sometimes theatrical outbursts, all are part of the complex, often chaotic, human reaction to being cornered by an undeniable, looming truth. You're lying. The direct, unflinching accusation pierces the suspect's carefully constructed veneer of innocence, aiming for a crucial break in his resolve. What's lying? The feigned ignorance, the attempt to deflect by questioning the very nature of truth, only serves to confirm the suspicion that deception is at play. The criminal mind, especially one with a deeply entrenched, almost pathological, habit of deceit, often only yields information that is absolutely unavoidable, or inconsequential to the larger picture of their culpability. He was only admitting to what he couldn't deny and denying what we couldn't prove. This shrewd, almost clinical, observation distills the essence of a hardened suspect, a master of selective truth-telling, a meticulous editor of his own sinister narrative. I didn't do anything. The flat, unwavering denial, delivered with a chilling lack of emotion even in the face of mounting, circumstantial evidence, is a hallmark of certain profoundly antisocial personalities who genuinely believe their own warped version of reality. He's only capable of one thing, and that is rage. This chilling psychological assessment, forged from observing patterns of violence, reveals a volatile, dangerous individual, a creature ruled by impulse and an explosive, unbridled aggression, rather than logic or empathy. He's unpredictable and he wants people to fear him. The desire for intimidation, the theatrical display of unrestrained emotion, becomes a primary tool for control, a means to dominate and instill terror in those around him. A vivid, unsettling image then punctuates this incisive analysis, illustrating the suspect's internal turmoil reaching a violent crescendo. He is banging his head as hard as he possibly can on the interrogation table. It is a desperate, violent act, designed perhaps to elicit sympathy, to express a profound, uncontainable frustration, or simply to unleash an internal fury that could no longer be contained within the fragile confines of his cell. The detective's dry, unwavering assessment of this spectacle follows, delivered with a cool, professional detachment that belies the intensity of the scene. Wow, you're really crazy. It is a subtle jab, a professional challenge, and a strategic observation directed at a man attempting to project a terrifying, unhinged persona, unaware that its performance is being meticulously dissected and understood. I spent my career closing murder cases, the voice of experience embodying the sentiment of all who walk this arduous path. But I'm not the only one who answered the call. The recognition of a shared burden, a collective mission, underscores the collaborative nature of this crucial work. It takes a rare breath to solve the unsolvable. This statement is not merely a declaration. To catch the ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead, these are the sacred tenets of their calling, the unwavering principles that guide every agonizing step. That's what it takes to be an American detective. This is more than a job description. It is a profound commitment to the principle that every life, no matter how humble, matters, that every crime, no matter how cleverly concealed, deserves resolution, and that every victim, silenced by violence, deserves a voice in the formidable, often slow, halls of justice. It is a promise to the forgotten, a relentless pursuit of light in the deepest shadows. In this specific, heart-wrenching quest for truth, her voice, calm yet resolute, carries the undeniable authority and composure forged through years spent navigating the darkest, most twisted corners of human behavior, of staring unflinchingly into the abyss of depravity. I was a homicide detective back in 2012 for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Her journey into this elite and demanding unit, however, was not a direct, unbroken path but one carved out of immense emotional and professional experience. As a detective, I was in child abuse and sex crimes. The weight of these words carries an unspoken understanding of profound human suffering, of the relentless, systematic violation of innocence. 4 years of sex crimes really wears on you, and it was time for me to move on and make change. The immense emotional toll of dealing with such horrific cases, the constant, intimate exposure to unspeakable cruelty and vulnerability, chipped away at her resilience, pushing her towards a new challenge, a different, equally grueling, battlefield in the endless war against crime. So homicide was the only step up from there, and I thought I was good enough to be in the elite club. This aspiration speaks not only to a profound self-belief and an unwavering confidence in her investigative acumen, but also to a powerful drive to excel in the most demanding, the most psychologically taxing of all investigative fields within law enforcement. It's rare for females to go to homicide. It's definitely rare for females to stick around in homicide. The traditionally male-dominated environment, the inherent pressures to prove oneself, the unspoken biases and skepticism, often deterred or drove away talented women who ventured into this unforgiving territory. But Michelle Sulik possessed an extraordinary resilience, an unyielding dedication, and an innate talent that transcended gender. Once I proved myself and proved my work ethic, and solved my first whodunit case, I gained a lot of respect from the guys, and I stayed in that unit for 10 years. Her tenacity, her meticulous attention to detail, her innate ability to unravel complex, seemingly insoluble mysteries, earned her not just grudging acceptance but genuine, hard-won respect, cementing her permanent and undeniable place in the specialized world of homicide investigation. This established her as not just competent, but truly exceptional, someone with the unwavering resolve to pursue justice no matter how complex, how frustrating, or how emotionally draining the path might become. Her decade of service in such a demanding field spoke volumes about her capabilities. The wheels of justice, or in this case, the meticulously grinding gears of a murder investigation, begin to turn on a seemingly ordinary, unremarkable mid-November day. carrying with them the insidious scent of looming tragedy. So in mid-November, I was just in the office working a normal day, and I got a phone call that missing person. Detectives had been working a case for a little over a month of a missing woman named Sherry Prather. The initial information is sparse, almost routine in its bureaucratic delivery, but it carries the heavy, unmistakable weight of a deeply unsettling narrative that was about to unfold. Sherry Prather had been gone for far too long for comfort, beyond the usual boundaries of an expected return, pushing the family's worry into the territory of genuine alarm. The last time anyone saw Sherry Prather, her family, gripped by an understandable, escalating panic and an instinct that screamed of foul play, reported her missing 3 days later. The quick notification, rather than a prolonged waiting period, indicated the immediate, profound distress of those closest to her, a powerful premonition that something had gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. Sherry Prather was, to her mother, a universe in microcosm, the singular, incandescent center of her existence. Well, Sherry was my only child. I raised her by myself. She was just the love of my life. The profound, unbreakable connection, the singular importance of this daughter who had been a constant companion and source of joy, underscores the unbearable, visceral pain of her sudden, unexplained absence. A poignant snapshot of Sherry's last known moments adds to the raw poignancy of her story, making her loss even more agonizingly real. This was Sherry. We took this on Wednesday, and the next day is when she disappeared. The mundane normality of a shared photograph, unaware of the impending catastrophe that loomed just hours away, becomes a haunting, almost unbearable relic. A tangible memory of a life about to be violently erased. The missing persons case, initially an agonizing search fueled by hope and desperation, took a dark, irreversible turn with the arrival of a crucial, unsettling tip that pierced the veil of uncertainty. The missing persons detectives received a tip that Sherry's body was off a Braddock Road. The sheer specificity of the information, far more concrete than a vague, unsubstantiated rumor, immediately elevated its importance, sending shivers down the spines of the investigators. This grim detail called for an immediate and strategic shift in investigative resources, recognizing the potential for an unspeakable tragedy. So they called us out saying, "Hey, we just wanted to get y'all on board. So if we find her, you've already stepped into the case." Homicide detectives were now brought into the loop, prepared for the grim, inevitable possibility that the missing person case would soon, devastatingly, transform into a full-fledged murder investigation. Michelle Salek stood ready, mentally preparing for the arduous task ahead, knowing the delicate dance between confirming a horrific discovery and initiating the relentless pursuit of a killer. The location where the anonymous tip led them painted a stark, challenging, and profoundly uninviting picture for any search and recovery effort. Braddock Road retains a lot of that rural look. This characteristic meant vast, untamed terrain, a sprawling wilderness of dense vegetation, offering endless places for concealment, a perfect canvas for a killer's depravity. You can go for a half-mile in some directions, and there's nothing but two-lane road and pine woods on either side. Such an environment, a seemingly endless expanse of dense natural cover, is a literal nightmare for anyone tasked with locating minute forensic evidence or human remains. You look at what you're supposed to be searching. It's overwhelming. It's a daunting task. How are we going to find anything in it? The sheer scale of the task, the daunting density of the natural environment, presented formidable, almost insurmountable, obstacles to locating human remains, especially after weeks of exposure to the elements. Indeed, their initial, methodical efforts proved heartbreakingly futile. Nobody could find her remains, leaving investigators with a gnawing sense of frustration and dread, knowing the body was out there, but infuriatingly hidden. Faced with the seemingly impossible task of finding a needle in an enormous haystack, the seasoned investigative team, demonstrating their adaptive and comprehensive approach, deployed a highly specialized and indispensable resource. So we had to call out a cadaver dog. These incredible animals, endowed with an acute and highly trained sense of smell, are truly crucial for locating human remains, capable of detecting the subtle, complex odors of decomposition that are entirely imperceptible to humans, even over vast distances. They thoroughly searched that area for several hours, the arduous and meticulous process reflecting both the difficulty of the rugged terrain and the elusive nature of their grim objective. Despite the invaluable, specialized help the early Tense hours of the search brought discouraging, spirit-sapping results, leading to a palpable wave of frustration that threatened to overwhelm the team. And they began to believe, this is never going to happen. We're not going to find anything of value. The spirit of even the most dedicated investigators, while inherently resilient, is not entirely immune to moments of profound doubt and weariness in the face of such an overwhelming, elusive task. Then, at a moment when despair seemed to settle like a heavy blanket, a sudden, thrilling, and ultimately heartbreaking break shattered the pervasive silence and instantly dispelled the creeping despair. And suddenly, the dog alerts, sits down and barks. This trained, definitive signal from the highly specialized animal, a clear and unmistakable communication, electrified the entire team. The dog's silent, patient, and unwavering work, an almost mystical connection to the hidden truth, had finally yielded a heartbreaking, yet crucial, truth. And then there's this skull, shining in the middle of it all. The single, stark image of human remains, bleached by the sun and exposed to the elements, confirmed their worst fears, transforming a chilling rumor into a horrifying, undeniable reality. We now know this is more than a rumor. There's a dead human here. The missing persons investigation, undeniably, had pivoted irrevocably to a homicide. So when one human bone is discovered, a search of a wider area begins. The methodical, painstaking process of a full-scale crime scene recovery operation immediately intensified, meticulously combing through the vast area for every scrap of evidence, every fragment of truth, understanding that each piece could hold the key to justice. The expanded search, now focusing with meticulous precision around the initial point of discovery, sadly confirmed the initial, grim revelation. They find a pair of shoes. They find a shirt. They find more bones, scattered by nature and time, each artifact a tragic testament to a lost life. These scattered remnants, tragic artifacts of a life, abruptly and brutally interrupted, spoke eloquently to the passage of time and the harsh, unforgiving nature of the outdoor environment. The bones look weathered, like they've been out there for a while. Florida's subtropical climate, with its relentless sun, intense heat, and suffocating humidity, acted as a powerful accelerator of the decomposition process, far more rapid than in drier, colder climates. Florida weather will do that. With the sun, the heat, the humidity. There is some level of decomposition that occurs in a month's time, of course. But a more disturbing, and unfortunately common, factor also played a significant and complicating role in the scattering and condition of the remains. But the real issue is carnivore involvement. Wild animals, drawn by the unmistakable scent of decay, had unfortunately scavenged the remains, scattering them over a wider area and further complicating the already challenging recovery efforts. All the flesh had been picked away. That particular area of Braddock Road, there was quite a bit of scavenging out there. A particularly gruesome detail highlights this unfortunate and devastating reality, demonstrating the extent of animal disturbance. Matter of fact, a pelvic bone was found up in a tree where an animal probably scurried it up the tree. This presented investigators with a deeply challenging, emotionally taxing, and forensically complex scene, requiring immense patience and meticulous work. So this is a tragic mess. The understatement encapsulating the profound difficulty and the human tragedy laid bare. With a collection of scattered bones, two immediate and profoundly critical questions then dominated the thoughts of the investigative team. Do they belong to Sherry, or is it someone else they don't even know about? The identification of the victim was paramount, a name needed for the remains to begin the process of justice. The medical examiner's office, with its specialized forensic expertise, was the next crucial step in this grim chain of discovery. The remains were carefully transported and meticulously examined by forensic anthropologists and they identified her as Sherry. This vital piece of the puzzle, providing a name to the bones, brought a crucial measure of certainty to the tragic discovery, transforming an unknown victim into a specific, remembered life. We were able to do that through some dental records, a reliable and often definitive method for identification when other more perishable markers are absent due to decomposition. And then, once identity was established, the next, even more critical, task loomed large. More importantly, we really have to determine what the cause of death was, and that is a critical piece. This single determination, the manner and mechanism of her death, would form the irrefutable foundation of the entire murder investigation. Skeletal remains can speak to you if you listen. The narrator explains, a poetic yet scientifically accurate statement, emphasizing the extraordinary skill and unwavering dedication of forensic anthropologists who possess the profound ability to coax silent, grim stories from mere bone fragments. We had a forensic anthropologist from the University of Florida come in, bringing specialized academic expertise to the case. This expert, working with painstaking care, found what appeared to be a half-moon indentation in one of the ribs, a specific and unusual injury pattern that immediately caught their trained eye, and then a fragmentation of one of her vertebrae that indicated that she was shot in the back. The definitive forensic finding brought absolute, chilling clarity to the violent means of Sherry Prather. At that point, we knew it was the homicide. The truth was now unequivocally laid bare. Sherry Prather had not merely vanished or met with an accidental end. She had been brutally murdered. So now it's different. It's no longer a missing person. It's a dead person. And they were murdered. The cold, hard reality of the term homicide now unequivocally defined the case, transforming it from a desperate search to a relentless hunt for a killer, and with it, a new level of urgent, unyielding resolve permeated the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And homicide detective Michelle Salick is on the coast. Her resolve was palpable, almost a tangible force, and she is not going to walk away from this.